Nobody talks about the most dangerous person in Invincible, the one who placed a device in the hero's brain while he was unconscious and called it protection, the one who had enough signals to suspect Omni-Man was lying and decided that was acceptable, the one who built an army from dead soldiers without telling anyone. His name is Cecil Stedman, no superpowers, never thrown a punch that mattered, the most powerful person on Earth. And this video is about why that should terrify you more than anything wearing a cape. 8 things about Cecil that the show wants you to overlook. Let's go. The show frames Cecil as necessary evil from day one, the pragmatist who does dirty work so heroes don't have to. That framing works because it makes you complicit. You root for Cecil, defend his decisions, tell yourself someone has to. By season 3, you have spent 3 years rationalizing a man who has never once rationalized his own behavior. Here is the receipt. He didn't just suspect Omni-Man, he built the entire response plan around him while pretending he trusted him. Cecil's systems flagged inconsistencies early enough to act on. He chose operational convenience over truth and filed it under acceptable risk. And when the Guardians died as a downstream consequence of that choice, Cecil did not reckon with it. He immediately began managing the aftermath, which is a completely different thing. Managing aftermath is what you do when you already knew something might go wrong and decided to let it happen anyway. That is not a man protecting Earth. That is a man protecting his own operational framework and calling it Earth's protection. Those two things look identical from the outside and produce completely different decisions from the inside. That distinction is what this entire video is about. Cecil's systems flagged that Earth's most powerful hero had been lying from the start, and Cecil decided that was fine. That is either the most pragmatic decision in history or the most dangerous one. Season 4 is about to answer that. Cecil is powerful through access intelligence networks, GDA technology, tactical command, institutional authority. That description sounds like protection. Every single element is about control of information and control of force, not response, not defense, control, before anything happens. At the source, after Omni-Man left, Cecil immediately began working with Mark the same way. Earpiece in, movements monitored, salary provided, loyalty assumed. These actions appeared altruistic. They were calculated. Cecil treats Mark like an asset from the start, specifically the most controllable version of Omni-Man's power available. A grieving teenager who desperately wants to be nothing like his father is the ideal asset for a man whose strategy depends on assets behaving predictably. Cecil did not recruit Mark because Mark was Earth's best hope. He recruited Mark because Mark was the version of that power he could manage. Cecil's actual job description, in 5 parts: control information, control access, control narrative, control force, control heroes. That is not a protection agency. That is a management system. Mark Grayson is its most important managed resource, valued not for who he is, but for what he does and how reliably he does it when directed. Cecil's idea of a job offer comes with an earpiece, a salary, and a tracking device. The salary is technically optional. Damien Darkblood solved the Guardians' murders, correctly identified Omni-Man before anyone else, and got banished to hell the moment the investigation reached conclusions. Cecil could not afford to become public. The official position, a demon detective operating unsupervised, was a liability. The real reason is more disturbing. Darkblood had information that, if surfaced, would have exposed Cecil's early decisions, and the body count those decisions contributed to. Cecil does not remove threats to Earth. He removes threats to his version of Earth's story. Darkblood was not dangerous because he was a demon. He was dangerous because he was right. Being right about the wrong subject is more threatening than being wrong about the right one. Wrong people can be corrected. Right people cannot be managed. 3 seasons later, Darkblood has spent his entire exile building a way back with Cecil, apparently on his list of outstanding business. The man banished for telling the truth has had 3 seasons to prepare. That is not a subplot. That is the show's moral ledger, finally reaching Cecil's page. Cecil banished a demon for solving a murder correctly. Most people get fired for incompetence. Darkblood got fired for being too competent and remembering too much. Here is what the show never says directly. Cecil is not making decisions for Earth. He is making decisions for his Earth. The version where he controls every variable and superheroes are assets, not people. Hold that distinction. Everything from here is about what happens when that version of Earth meets a reality that will not cooperate. While Mark was unconscious, healing from his fight with his father, Cecil placed a sonic device in his brain capable of shattering his equilibrium. Cecil's reasoning when confronted was precise. Earth faced one Viltrumite unprepared, and he was not letting that happen again. The logic was sound. The decision was made on a person who could not consent. Both facts exist simultaneously, and Cecil experienced no conflict between them. This is the most revealing thing Cecil has ever done because of what it was not. It was not panic, not a decision he later reconsidered. It was a calm, premeditated choice to install a weapon inside the brain of the person who trusted him most, and when that person woke up and found out, Cecil explained the logic, rather than acknowledge the violation. The explanation was correct. The logic was airtight. A man who can cross that line without conflict does not have a meaningful line remaining. He has a series of calculations, and calculations do not stop at any particular number. Most employers give you a contract and a parking spot. Cecil gave Mark a salary and a device in his skull. The GDA onboarding process is extremely thorough. Cecil employed D.A. Sinclair, the scientist who converted living people into reanimin. When Mark found out he was furious, Cecil's response was not remorse. It was impatience. The specific impatience of someone who has already processed the ethics, reached the conclusion, and moved on, and finds it genuinely frustrating that others have not done the same. Mark's objection registered not as a moral challenge, but as an operational inconvenience. The reanimin program was not a dark chapter. It was a proof of concept, and every season that follows the concept gets refined, not abandoned. Cecil's methodology did not improve after being confronted with its human cost. It scaled. There is a straight, unbroken line from Sinclair forward, and it has never bent upward. Cecil's philosophy in its simplest form. Find the most effective tool available. Never ask what the tool used to be. Cecil is more dangerous than any other character in the show. Not because he does terrible things, but because he does them so incrementally and with such consistent justification that each decision appears defensible in isolation. The kill switch made sense. Sinclair made sense. Ignoring the early Omni-Man signals made sense. Banishing Darkblood made sense. Stack them in a line and every single one has a rational argument behind it. Cecil operates on outcome-first logic. If Earth's survival is the goal, almost any method eventually becomes thinkable. But outcome-first logic without external accountability is not ethics. It is preference, with a logical wrapper. Cecil's outcomes have been consistently good for Earth's institutional survival, and consistently bad for every individual who falls between his decision and its result. At a certain point, that pattern stops being a series of hard choices and starts being a worldview. A person who has made 10 decisions that were wrong in method but correct in outcome is someone who has been trained to believe the method never mattered. Cecil has one rule. The ends justify the means. His only problem is he gets to decide what the ends are.
Season 4 opens with Cecil at the peak of his power. He commands Earth's entire superhero infrastructure, has intelligence assets inside the Viltrum situation, contingency programs running in parallel, and 3 seasons of files on every powered individual on the planet. More importantly, he knows where the bodies are buried because he decided where to put them.
Consider the comparison directly. Thragg can destroy planets. Cecil decides which planets get defended. Thragg operates through force. Cecil operates through information, access, and the authority to determine what constitutes acceptable loss. In a war against the Viltrumite Empire, Earth needs Cecil genuinely, urgently, without a viable alternative. That need is his greatest power and his most effective protection against accountability. You cannot remove the person you cannot afford to lose. Cecil spent 3 seasons making himself impossible to lose. That was not an accident. Thragg built an empire through violence. Cecil built one through paperwork and plausible deniability. The paperwork version is harder to dismantle. Cecil's breaking point will not come from a villain defeating him or a hero exposing him dramatically. It will come from a decision completely consistent with everything he has always done. Logical, defensible, outcome first, that generates a consequence too large to manage or contain. Not a decision that looks wrong, the one that looks right. That is always the one. Cecil won't fall because he's evil. He'll fall because he's right too often, and eventually reality stops cooperating. This refuses the easy ending. The show is not building towards Cecil as a secret villain who was corrupt all along. It is building towards something harder. A man genuinely committed to Earth's survival, who made rational decisions under impossible pressure, who was right about almost everything, and who still produced catastrophe. Because outcome-first logic without limit removes not just the floor on methods, it removes the ability to recognize when the method has become the problem. 3 seasons of being right has made Cecil incapable of imagining being wrong. Season 4 is the first season where the scale of what is coming will finally exceed what his framework can manage. Watch for the Cecil decision that makes complete sense. Not the one that looks wrong. The one that looks exactly right. That is always the one. The scariest character in Invincible has no powers, he has a philosophy, and 3 seasons of evidence it works. Season 4 is about to find out if it still does 3 things. 1. Cecil had enough signals to suspect Omni-Man and chose convenience over truth. Everything downstream belongs to him. 2. The kill switch. The Sinclair program, the contingency soldiers, are not isolated failures. They are the consistent output of a man who decided outcomes matter more than methods and never revisited that once. 3. Season 4 puts both Darkblood and the Viltrumite war against Cecil's framework simultaneously. One of them will find the crack 3 seasons of being right has been hiding. Cecil. Hero or villain? One word. The one decision that made you choose. First hour replies guaranteed. You already know what to do.